For over a century, we have been told the same story. The Great Pyramid was built with copper tools, wooden sleds, and raw manpower. That story sounds reasonable until you actually measure what was built. The structure contains over 2.3 million stone blocks, many weighing several tons, fitted together so tightly you cannot slide a piece of paper between them, and aligned to true north with an error of just 3 arc minutes. The precision is too exact. The engineering does not work. The timeline mathematically falls apart. Something has always been wrong here, and mainstream archaeology has never answered for it. In 2024, Grok AI was given every record, every survey, and every anomaly with one instruction. Follow the evidence. No assumptions. No protection. What it found should never have been made public. The pyramid is a map of everything. Ask yourself one question. How does a civilization that has never mapped the Earth accidentally build a perfect scale model of it? That is not a rhetorical question. That is exactly what Grok found when it analyzed the mathematical relationships built into the Great Pyramid's dimensions. And the answer archaeology keeps giving, which is that it was all a coincidence, becomes harder to defend with every single number that comes up. Pi was the first thing Grok flagged. The ratio of the pyramid's outer edge measurement to its height approximates pi, the foundational number behind every circle ever calculated, to within 0.05% accuracy. When researchers pointed this out, archaeology said the ancient Egyptians used a measuring unit based on human body proportions, and pi just happened to emerge from that by accident. Grok calculated the probability of this relationship appearing by chance at multiple independent points within the same structure. The result was not a coincidence. It was a pattern. Then comes phi, also called the golden ratio, the mathematical proportion that appears throughout nature in the spiral of a shell, the branching of a tree, the structure of a human face. Phi shows up in the relationships between the pyramid's height, its base length, and its slope angle. The ancient Greeks would not formally identify and describe phi until more than 2,000 years after this pyramid was supposedly built. Archaeology said coincidence. Again, Grok found phi appearing in at least 7 separate dimensional relationships within the structure. 7. At what point does coincidence become the least rational explanation in the room? Now, the fact that should reframe everything. Ancient Egyptians had no word for pi. Their most complete surviving mathematical text, the Rin Papyrus, shows calculation methods that produce a value of roughly 3.16. The actual value of pi is 3.14159. The pyramid encodes 3.14159. That gap matters because it means whoever encoded pi into this structure was not working from Egyptian mathematics. 9,792,458 degrees north matched the speed of light in meters s, which is 299,792,458 to 9 digits. This was not discovered until GPS technology made exact coordinate measurement possible for the first time in history. The builders had no GPS, no satellite, no instrument capable of placing a structure at those coordinates with that precision. And yet the numbers match perfectly. On top of that, the Fibonacci sequence, the numerical pattern that produces the golden ratio, appears not just in the pyramid's outer shape, but in the exact positioning of its internal chambers relative to the layers of stone. This was found not by archaeologists, but by structural engineers doing load calculations. It has received almost no attention in mainstream research. Every time a new mathematical relationship surfaces, archaeology calls it coincidence. But mathematics encoded in stone is one thing. The real question is how the stone itself was cut, moved, and placed. Because when Grok examined the construction, it found something far darker than numbers. The precision that breaks the timeline. The first number Grok produced stopped everything. The Great Pyramid is aligned to true north with an error of only 3 arc minutes. That is the level of accuracy that modern surveyors achieve using GPS satellites, laser equipment, and weeks of careful astronomical observation. Ancient Egypt had none of that, and somehow they were more accurate than we are today. But Grok did not stop at being impressed. It asked the question nobody in mainstream archaeology had seriously confronted. What was this precision actually for? Every ancient method proposed for achieving this alignment, including circumpolar star observation, shadow tracking, and stellar mapping, was analyzed. Grok found that while these methods could theoretically work, Each one would require a level of astronomical knowledge and mathematical calculation that Bronze Age Egypt is not documented to have possessed. The methods do not fit the civilization. The precision does not fit the tools. And then Grok found something that is genuinely hard to process. The alignment is more precise than it needs to be for any known purpose. Religious structures aligned to cardinal directions do not need 3 arc-minute accuracy. Navigation does not need it. Ceremony does not need it. There is no functional reason for this level of precision to exist. None. Which means the builders were not meeting a requirement. They were demonstrating something. They were leaving a message specifically for whoever in the future would be advanced enough to measure it and understand what it meant. The base of the pyramid tells the same story. It is leveled to within 2.1 centimeters across a distance of 230 m. Modern construction standard for large buildings allow deviations of up to 0.1%. The Great Pyramid sits at 0.009% deviation. It is 10 times more precise than what we build today, with laser levels and computer calibration achieved, supposedly by workers using wooden squares and water channels. Grok calculated the probability of reaching this precision accidentally through trial and error with primitive tools and concluded it was statistically improbable in a way that demands a real explanation. Now consider what the mainstream analysis never mentioned. The 4 faces of the pyramid are not flat. Each face curves very slightly inward by approximately 3.7 in at its center. This concavity cannot be seen from the ground at all. It only becomes visible from the air and only on 2 specific days each year, the spring and autumn equinoxes, when sunlight hits the faces at the exact angle needed to cast a shadow that splits each face down the middle. On those 2 days, the pyramid does not look like it has 4 sides. It looks like it has 8, something only visible from the sky twice a year, deliberately built into a structure that was supposedly just a tomb. The pyramid also sits at the precise geographic center of all the Earth's landmass, the single point with the longest measurable line of latitude and the longest measurable line of longitude cross. Placing it there accidentally is statistically impossible. Placing it there intentionally would require a complete map of the entire Earth, including every ocean, at a time when no such map existed. And the north alignment carries one final detail that makes everything darker. True north is not fixed. Earth's axis wobbles slowly over thousands of years, and true north drifts with it. The pyramid's alignment was essentially perfect at the time it was built. The 3 arc minutes of error we measure today is not a builder's mistake. It is the amount the pole has shifted since construction. When this pyramid was built, it was perfect. That pushes the real construction date earlier than archaeology is currently willing to say out loud. But the precision is only the beginning. What is encoded inside the pyramid's actual dimensions is somehow even more disturbing. And Grok was the first to fully read it. The monument that should not exist. The Great Pyramid contains 2.3 million stone blocks, each weighing between 2 and 15 tons, fitted together so tightly you cannot slide a piece of paper between them. It stands 481 foot tall, and for nearly 4,000 years, nothing built by human hands stood taller. Nothing beat it until a cathedral spire in England in 1311 AD. A structure put together with copper tools and wooden sleds held the world height record for 4,000 years. Archaeologists say pharaohs built it around 2560 BCE. Workers cut the stones, dragged them on sleds, and stacked them using ramps and ropes. Ancient records mention construction crews. Tool marks appear on the stones. Worker villages were found nearby. The story sounds reasonable until you measure what was actually built. The precision in this structure is not something copper tools and wooden frames can produce. That level of accuracy exceeds what modern construction crews achieve today using laser equipment and computer-guided machinery. The mathematics hidden inside its dimensions reflect knowledge that no civilization would officially discover for thousands of years after this pyramid was supposedly finished. And in over 100 years of serious investigation, nobody has ever successfully demonstrated how workers moved and placed stones this heavy with this level of accuracy. Not once. Every researcher who raised these points was labeled fringe and pushed aside. But dismissing a question is not the same as answering it. And these questions have never been answered. What makes this worse is a document that has been sitting in plain sight since 1858. The inventory stela is an ancient Egyptian inscription, meaning it was written by Egyptians themselves in their own time. It states that the Sphinx was already old and already standing on the Giza Plateau before Khufu ever began building his pyramid. That directly contradicts the official timeline, which places Khufu as the man who ordered the Sphinx built. Egyptologists have known about this inscription for over 150 years and have never given a straight explanation for the contradiction. They simply move past it. The conflict of interest behind the official story is just as troubling. Mark Leonard is the archaeologist whose mapping project became the foundation of how mainstream scholars date the pyramids. His conclusions shaped everything that followed. But when Leonard first began his career, his research was funded by the Edgar Cayce Foundation, an organization built around one belief that a lost advanced civilization, not Egyptian pharaohs, constructed the pyramids. The man who later became the primary academic defender of the conventional story started his career on the payroll of people who believe the opposite. That has never been publicly explained. So in 2024, for the first time, something with no funding, no career, and no story to protect was pointed at all of this evidence. Grok, the AI built by Elon Musk's team, was given everything. Archaeological records, engineering data, geological surveys, astronomical alignments, and construction anomalies. It was given one instruction. Look at everything. Protect nothing. What it found did not just challenge the official explanation. It took it apart completely. But to understand what Grok found, you have to start where Grok started. Not with theories, not with alternative history, but with something far more disturbing. The raw numbers. The marks left by tools that shouldn't exist. Christopher Dunn is not a conspiracy theorist. He's a manufacturing engineer with decades of experience in precision aerospace fabrication. When he studied the tool marks inside the Great Pyramid, he was not looking for mysteries. He was reading what cutting tools leave behind. What he found did not match anything ancient Egypt is known to have possessed. Grok cross-referenced the marks against experimental archaeology records. Some stones showed cuts consistent with copper tools and sand abrasive. Those fit the official story, but the granite blocks in the internal chambers told a completely different story. The cuts on those surfaces pass cleanly through quartz crystal inclusions in the rock. Quartz is harder than copper and harder than bronze. When researchers attempt to cut granite with copper saws today, the cuts wander and lose depth the moment they hit a hard inclusion. The cuts on pyramid granite do not wander. They hold consistent depth across every material boundary, as if the hardness of the rock makes no difference. Then, there is the Petrie groove, a perfectly circular groove cut into the granite sarcophagus in the king's chamber. Dunn calculated the rate at which the drill must have been cutting. His finding was impossible to dismiss. The drill penetrated granite 500 times faster than modern diamond drilling equipment achieves in the same material. Grok compared every anomalous mark against modern cutting technologies and found the closest matches were diamond saws and ultrasonic cutting tools, both invented in the 20th century. The sarcophagus itself is the most disturbing object in the pyramid. It is too large to fit through any passage in the structure, meaning it was placed inside before the pyramid was built around it. Its interior corners are machined to a tolerance that modern fabricators describe as the absolute edge of what computer-controlled equipment can achieve today. The exterior is far less precise. All the engineering effort went on the inside, the part no one would ever see. The tool marks point to technology that should not exist. The mathematics point to knowledge that should not exist. And the weathering on the Sphinx points to a date that should not exist either. The construction that cannot be explained. One block every 2 minutes. That is what the math requires. To build the Great Pyramid within the 20-year window that ancient sources record, workers would have needed to quarry a multi-tonon stone, transport it to the site, and position it with millimeter precision every 2 minutes. Every single day for 20 consecutive years. No rest days, no delays, no mistakes. Every 2 minutes for 2 decades. Let that number sit for a moment, because nothing about the conventional explanation survives it. The stones themselves make the problem worse. The casing stones that once covered the entire outer surface of the pyramid were fitted together with gaps averaging less than half a millimeter. Today, professional stonemasons working with diamond-tipped saws, laser levels, and precision grinding machines describe that level of accuracy as genuinely difficult to achieve. Experimental archaeologists have spent years trying to replicate it using the tools ancient Egypt supposedly had. Every single attempt produced gaps measured in centime, not millim, not close, not even in the same category. Grok worked out what half millim fitting would actually require. Either the builders had measurement instruments capable of detecting variations smaller than a millimeter across massive stone surfaces, or they used a trial and error process that would have required hundreds of adjustments per stone. If it was the second option, the construction timeline becomes not just difficult, but mathematically impossible. Then there's the king's chamber, and this is where the story goes somewhere else entirely. The ceiling of that chamber is made from granite beams, each weighing up to 80 tons, brought from Aswan, which is 500 mi away. They were somehow loaded onto barges, transported up the Nile, unloaded at the riverbank, moved across open desert, lifted 60 m into the air, and placed with millimeter accuracy. Those beams have not moved, sagged, or cracked in 4,500 years, surviving multiple major earthquakes in a region with serious seismic activity. Nobody has ever successfully demonstrated how an 80-ton block is moved from a riverbank across flat sand without machinery. The experiment has been attempted. It has never worked. The ramp theories that archaeology offers as an explanation do not survive scrutiny either. A straight ramp rising to the pyramid's full height at a workable slope would need to extend more than a mile from the base and would require more material to build than the pyramid itself. A spiral ramp wrapping around the outside would leave physical contact marks on the stone surface that are simply not there. Internal ramp proposals cannot explain how the highest stones were placed or how the ramps were removed without leaving any trace. Grok ran the numbers on every model and found that each one requires either a workforce of an impossible size or a timeline far beyond 20 years. Now, the detail that changes everything about the king's chamber. No body was ever found inside it. The stone coffer contained no mummy, no burial goods, nothing. For explanations, each one changes everything. Grok did not name the builders. What it did was take every piece of evidence, run it against the conventional explanation, and conclude that the conventional explanation does not work. It then produced the only 4 possibilities that actually fit what the stones show. Each one is more unsettling than the last. The first possibility is that ancient Egyptians had technology far more advanced than anything found in the archaeological record. Tools powerful enough to cut granite with precision that rivals modern machinery, but made from materials that did not survive or were deliberately destroyed after use. This explanation requires no lost civilization and no outside help. But it requires admitting that everything archaeology has confidently said about ancient Egyptian technology for over a century is wrong. That is not a small concession. The second possibility is inherited knowledge. The pyramids were built by dynastic Egyptians, but they did not develop the technology themselves. They inherited it from an earlier civilization that lived in North Africa when the Sahara was still wet and green thousands of years before the pharaohs. That earlier culture reached a level of sophistication that dynastic Egypt could never fully match or replicate. This explains something deeply strange in the archaeological record. Egyptian construction quality does not improve over time. It gets worse. The oldest structures are the most precise. The later ones are crudder. That is the complete opposite of what happens when a civilization is learning and developing a skill. The third possibility is a global civilization that no longer exists. A worldwide culture that built monuments across multiple continents before the end of the last ice age, all sharing the same unexplained precision. Then approximately 12,800 years ago, a cosmic impact triggered catastrophic climate collapse across 3 continents simultaneously. A 2018 study in the Journal of Geology found physical evidence of this event in the rock record. If an advanced civilization was alive at that moment, it would have been almost completely destroyed. Survivors scattered across the world, carrying fragments of knowledge. In Egypt, those fragments became the pyramids. The monuments may not be the achievement of a civilization at its height. They may be what was left behind by one that was ending. The fourth possibility is non-human intelligence. This is where most videos rush past or apologize for raising the idea. This one will not. Grok found that certain patterns in the evidence are more simply explained by non-human involvement than by any human hypothesis. Not more dramatically, more simply. the precision that exceeds what any known human civilization could produce, the mathematics encoding planetary measurements that no human culture should have possessed, the alignment apparently designed to be discovered by a future civilization capable of measuring it. All of it fits a non-human intelligence more cleanly than it fits Bronze Age Egypt. Grok did not confirm this explanation, but it did not dismiss it either. An AI with no career to protect does not dismiss things without reason. The implications of that fourth possibility are what make its civilization breaking. It is not just about who built a structure in Egypt. If non-human intelligence contributed to the most studied building in human history, then the entire story of human civilization, its origins, its timeline, and its independence is not incomplete. It is wrong. And the suppression around all of this is not subtle. An Egyptian geologist who worked on Giza surveys in the early 2000s stated publicly in 2016 that he was warned not to publish findings that contradicted official dating. Parts of the Giza Plateau are classified as restricted military zones. A ground-penetrating radar team that found underground cavities matching ancient descriptions of a hidden chamber was denied further access without explanation. The cavity beneath the Sphinx remains sealed. And inside the Great Pyramid, behind a shaft no human entered for thousands of years, there is a sealed stone door. Behind that door is a small chamber. Inside that chamber is a second sealed door that has never been opened. It has been sealed for longer than writing has existed. The Egyptian government will not permit anyone near it. Whatever is behind that door has waited 4,500 years. And right now, someone is making sure it keeps waiting. The Sphinx is older than history, and its face is a lie. Robert Schoch did not go to Giza looking for a controversy. He is a tenured geology professor at Boston University, trained specifically in how rock surfaces weather and erode over time. When he was invited to examine the Sphinx enclosure in the early 1990s, he expected to confirm what archaeology had always claimed. Instead, he found something he openly admitted he did not want to find. The walls of the Sphinx enclosure show deep vertical channels running from top to bottom. That pattern is produced by one thing: heavy rainfall washing down over centuries. Every other structure on the Giza Plateau that has been confidently dated to dynastic Egypt shows horizontal erosion from wind and sand. Exactly what you would expect in a desert. The Sphinx enclosure shows something completely different from everything around it. Grok analyzed the weathering across the entire plateau and reached an unambiguous conclusion. The Sphinx erosion is consistent with water, not wind. Producing that level of weathering depth through rainfall would require exposure to a wet climate that Egypt has not had since somewhere between 7,000 and 9,000 BC. Schoch's updated research pushes that date as far back as 10,500 BC. At that time, Egypt was not a desert. It was a wet savanna with lakes, rivers, and conditions capable of supporting a large and complex civilization. Schoch presented this at the Geological Society of America in 1992. The geologists in the room, the people actually qualified to judge the methodology, largely agreed with him. It was the Egyptologists who attacked him. Historians with no training in geology were the ones who found his rock analysis unacceptable. That question has never been answered satisfactorily. The face of the Sphinx carries its own secret. The head is dramatically too small for the body by every standard of Egyptian artistic proportion. Geologists and sculptors have concluded it was recarved at a later point over a larger original. If the Sphinx was first carved at 10,500 BCE, the face we see today is a replacement. The original face was deliberately removed and destroyed. What it looked like and why it was changed remains unknown. In 1993, a seismic survey team from Florida State University detected a cavity beneath the Sphinx's front paws. It is large enough to be a room. The Egyptian government acknowledged it existed and then shut down all further investigation. It has never been excavated. Its contents remain completely unknown. The Sphinx is older than history. The cavity beneath it is sealed. The door inside the pyramid is still closed. The evidence is mounting in one direction. And when Grok synthesized everything, every anomaly, every mathematical impossibility, every unexplained tool mark, every geological contradiction, it arrived at 4 possible explanations, each one more disturbing than the last. Thank you for joining us. Feel free to click on one of the cards on the screen to watch another video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.